The regions of the Pokemon world are as varied and unique as the Pokemon within them, but which ones are the best to live in, and which ones do you maybe want to avoid? That is what we'll be determining today. We'll be going over each of the 9 major regions to figure out which one is the best to live in for both trainers and normal people, as each group has vastly different needs, and then we'll rank each region on a tier list from S to F. So what's the criteria? Well, let's go over them as we go over our first region, Kanto. As I stated earlier, I'm splitting the criteria for quality of life into non-trainers and professional trainers, as the needs for these two groups differ greatly. Non-trainers rely on metrics that are similar to our own world, as they are essentially just normal people that live in the Pokemon world. So I thought, what qualities determine the area that people want to live in? And I came up with 4 categories that can be used to determine the desirability of a region. The first is economic stability and prosperity. You want to live in an area where you can make a good amount of money, right? The world of Pokemon is a capital-based society. Pretty much everything we do in the world of Pokemon, aside from healthcare, seems to revolve around the Poké-Dollar. When you win battles, you get Poké-Dollars, and when you want to buy something, you usually use them as well. So it seems fairly logical that living in a region where you can make more money is more desirable than living in one where you make less. And that is the basis of this criteria. The more a person makes, the better the region's score. But Chris, I hear you asking, how do we know how much certain jobs in the Pokemon world provide? And the answer is, we don't. But there is a hint, which comes from the Pokemon battles we fight in the games. As we already established, when you win battles, you get money. This amount is not random or specifically assigned to each trainer though. There is a mathematical equation to determine this number. Each class of trainer is assigned a base value, which is then multiplied by the level of the last Pokemon they have in their party, and then that amount is paid out. That base value we see can basically be used as a sort of wage, as higher earning classes like gentlemen, socialites, and gym leaders have higher base values than classes like swimmers or bird keepers. So I use these figures to find the average and median wage of each worker in each Pokemon region, and use that as our baseline for economic stability and prosperity. I know it's not a perfect methodology, but it's what we have to work with. The Kanto region is not the best in this category. In fact, it is the lowest earning region of any mainline Pokemon game. This makes sense, as its population is mostly made up of mid-wage workers like fishermen, bikers, and gamblers, while simultaneously lacking ace and cool trainers that usually provide high economic value. It's important to mention that when I did these calculations for all the regions, I did not include child trainer classes, such as youngsters or bug catchers, because they are, well, children. I also did not include trainer rematches, as it just would have made it a lot more complicated to calculate. If you have any other questions about these methods, feel free to leave a comment down below. So yeah, Kanto is not doing the best when it comes to economic prosperity. And this is even further cemented by our next criteria, urban development. High urban areas are basically synonymous with high economic activity and prosperity, as well as just general quality of life. There's a reason places like Paris, New York City, Tokyo, and Shanghai have a higher standard of living than places like Oklahoma, and it's because of the money that cities bring in and create for their people. Obviously, urban development is not everything when it comes to quality of life, but a country, or in this case a region, that has highly urbanized areas is usually more economically prosperous than one that does not. And on this front, the Kanto region also struggles a bit. It only has 2 highly urbanized centers, which I've basically defined as areas with high density buildings or a variety of amenities, or both. Those are Saffron City and Celadon City. Saffron City is, without a doubt, the main economic hub of the region. In addition to the massive Silphco Tower that dominates the city, there is also a large amount of high density housing, and even a train station connecting this economic hub to the main economic hub of Johto, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Saffron City also has a Pokemon gym and a Pokemon dojo, providing jobs even outside of Silphco. So from a jobs and business perspective, I would say Saffron is 100% the business sector of the region, with Celadon being the main consumer sector. Basically, people make their money in Saffron and then spend it in Celadon, as it has not just a casino, but also a 5-floor department store and a restaurant as well, which are not that common in the Kanto region. Hoenn. Celadon also seems to be a highly residential city, having multiple high-rise apartment buildings that seem to be fairly full of people. Outside of these two cities, though, almost none of the other locations have any meaningful density or amenities, despite them mostly being cities. Most have a handful of single-family homes at best. I was considering also including Fuchsia City as a major urban center, but I think it's more of a tourist trap than anything else. That Safari Zone is not very fair, let me tell you. So in our two economic categories, the Kanto region can't do much worse. But our next category, safety, it does quite well in. Safety is important. No one wants to live in an area where they feel unsafe. And in the world of Pokemon, where almost every region has some highly dangerous legendary Pokemon and evil organization trying to harness their power, feeling safe can be kind of challenging in some of these regions. Kanto is not one of those. Sure, there is Team Rocket, but in terms of danger, they're fairly low on the list. It's not like they're trying to destroy the world or sink every continent or anything, they're just stealing Pokemon. They're more like a mafia than they are a terrorist organization. And the legendaries of Kanto aren't too dangerous either. Yeah, there's Mewtwo, but he seems fairly content to just kinda chill in Cerulean Cave as long as you don't bother him, as do the legendary birds in their respective locations. So in terms of safety, Kanto actually does very well and is one of our highest scoring regions in this matter. And it does pretty well in our final criteria too, which is ease of travel. This one might sound a bit weird at first, but I promise it makes sense. If you are a normal person in the world of Pokemon, we are assuming that you have not completed the gym challenge. Maybe you have a couple gym badges, but it's unlikely that the everyday person has all 8 badges, and in some regions, this can really inhibit your ability to travel freely. With waterfalls, whirlpools, and boulders all over the place, lacking proper HMs can literally trap you in a town. Could you imagine being born in Sootopolis City, born into a location that requires dive or fly to get out of, and not having access to the gym badge for either move? You'd literally just be stuck there. This is why I've included ease of travel as a criteria. Some regions are easier to traverse for non-trainers than others, and Kanto is among the best to live in for this purpose. Only one single town is completely blocked off by HM, and that's Cinnabar Island, which doesn't have much going on anyway, so it's not like you would want to go there. And while there are a lot of other roadblocks throughout the region, most do not require an HM. Yes, there is the occasional cut tree, but that's about it. Anyone can theoretically get the guards a drink and open up Saffron City for the whole region. Anyone can theoretically get Mr. Fuji to wake up the Snorlaxes with the Pokeflute. And even if he doesn't, you can still take the long way around if you really need to. It is a really easy region to travel for a normal person. So overall, the Kanto region is pretty middle of the road for a normal person to live in. I would give it a B tier, with economic issues being the main thing holding it back from being higher up. For professional trainers though, it's pretty bad. When I'm talking about professional trainers, I mainly mean people who are a trainer as their main job in the world of Pokemon. So gym leaders, frontier brains, ace trainers, that kind of stuff. Basically people who want to make the strongest team possible and pursue being the strongest trainer possible. And for this, I have created 4 main criteria. The first 2 regard access. When it comes to building a team, especially a professional or competitive level 1, being able to easily obtain the items you need is really important. Whether that be TMs, held items, mints, or EV/IV training methods, the easier it is to build a fully fleshed out team, the more likely you are to succeed as a professional trainer. Because when you have all the resources you need, the only thing stopping you is your skill. So the first criteria is access to resources. How easily can a trainer gather the aforementioned resources and anything else they might need? And in this category, Kanto really sucks. There are almost 0 held items available in this region, even in the remakes, and those that are available are extremely limited or extremely rare held items on wild Pokemon, meaning this vital resource is almost non-existent. Not unlike breeding, which is another super important tool used to pass down nature's abilities and IVs. In the Kanto region, there are no breeders on the mainland, only on the Sevi Islands, so this is another part of this criteria that it fails on. The other one of these ease categories is ease of access to Pokemon. Are there good Pokemon Pokemon in this region? And if so, how easy are they to obtain? Kanto is once again in an unfortunate place for this criteria, as it was the first region created, and as such, many of Kanto's native Pokemon have been power crept by future regions. But even if we look at the Pokemon that were good when Kanto was at its peak, it's still not in a great position, because so many of these Pokemon were so annoying to get. Want Alakazam, Gengar, or Machamp? You gotta trade. Want a Dragonite? Gotta save 6,500 coins at the game corner or get really lucky in the Safari Zone. Want a Chansey or a Tauros? Safari Zone once again. Granted, there are still a lot of good Pokemon that can be found pretty easily, like Snorlax, who's literally just lying there, Gyarados, who can be found in literally every single body of water after an evolution, and of course the starter Pokemon, which are all pretty good in their own ways. But compared to the other regions and how easy it is to get good Pokemon there, it just doesn't measure up well. The next major area for professional trainers is challenge. How much of a challenge do the opponent trainers pose to you in this region? It's no secret that the harder you train at an activity, the better you become, and in competitive activities, being able to find strong opponents to push you past your limits is really important to growing to your full potential. As such, it is important for a professional trainer to be able to find people that can push them, which is why I consider the in-game challenge to be a pretty important component. It basically boils down to how difficult are the trainers in this game, and in this category, Kanto does fairly decently. It's not the hardest region out there, but there are some challenging trainers throughout the region, especially the Gym Leaders Elite Four, and of course, the rival. It's important to note now that this category does not take into consideration strong wild Pokemon such as Ultra Necrozma or Eternatus, as these are not challenges a normal professional trainer would face. They're pretty much just for the protagonist, and the final criteria is battle facilities. Does this region have a battle frontier, battle tower, battle tree, etc.? These, once again, are really important for a professional trainer to have, not only because many of them provide access to some of the best held items in the game, but also because they oftentimes have the absolute hardest trainers in the region as well. Frontier Brains and similar trainer classes force opponents to fight under unique circumstances, and all fights at these facilities are done on even ground, as all levels are set to level 50 or 100, so no amount of leveling will give you an advantage, meaning that battle facilities are a great way for professional trainers to polish both their teams and battling prowess. Kanto has almost zero battle facilities. The only thing close is the trainer tower, but that is a very different challenge that does not provide the same constraints or rewards, meaning this is another criteria where this region falls flat. For someone trying to be a professional trainer, Kanto is pretty much the worst there is. Realistically, I know this is because of the real life circumstances surrounding the creation of the region, as it was literally the first in the series, and as such, these kind of amenities weren't really taken into account. But at the same time, we have to consider these regions on an even playing field, and for a trainer, Kanto is pretty underwhelming, if not outright bad. So I'm going to be putting it in D tier for trainers. The one saving grace for this region is its in-game difficulty, and if it were not for that, it would not be skating out of F tier. Okay, now that we've finished going over the criteria, we can actually start moving through these regions quite a bit faster. So thank you for sticking with me thus far, and let's get into Johto. When it comes to being a regular person, the Johto region is a very solid region to live in. By far, its biggest boon is the level of safety it provides. Not only is Johto one of the few regions whose legendary Pokemon are not beings of supreme power and destruction, it's also the only region whose legendary Pokemon are wholly benevolent. Or at least Ho-Oh is. That's not me trying to rag on Lugia. I love Lugia. I'm just saying, Ho-Oh literally brought Pokemon back to life and elevated them into legendary Pokemon. That is a level of care and kindness we rarely see from legendaries. And Lugia seems quite chill as well, content to just sit in the Whirl Islands and guard the sea, or at least that's what I think it does. The other big reason Johto is safe is that Team Rocket is barely functioning in the region. They are in shambles after Giovanni abandoned them, and as such, the danger they present is minimal. And remember, Team Rocket was already not a super threatening team, but safety isn't the only thing Johto has going for it. It's also really easy to travel across. Much like Kanto, most of the areas that are blocked off across Johto are not blocked by HM requiring obstacles. They're usually obstacles that can be permanently removed, like Sudowoodo. While there are some cases of needing HMs like Cut, Surfer, Strength, they are few and far between. And even then, they're kind of countered by the fact that Johto has a train station, allowing for easy inter-region travel, which is really not common in the world of Pokemon. However, as great as these aspects are for the regular people of Johto, there are some pretty notable issues in the urban development and economic prosperity side of things. In terms of urban development, Johto comes in dead last. It literally just has Goldenrod. That's it. 0 other urban centers. The next 3 biggest cities, which I would consider Olivine, Ecruteak, and Violet, all lack high-density housing and offer no additional amenities like Goldenrod does. Unless you count a lighthouse or a tower full of weird old men as amenities, but I personally don't. Now obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you can live a peaceful and prosperous life in an urban setting. Urbanization is not the end-all be-all of quality of life. But when you combine low urbanization with low wages, that is when quality of life can start to get really hard for the average person, which is an issue Johto struggles with. The average wage for a worker in the Johto region is barely higher than it is in Kanto. Both the average and median wage come in just above that for Kanto, which is good, but it's not so good that it can counteract the natural banes that come from low urbanization. It's really a mix of extremely high highs and fairly low lows, so I think it's fair to put it in B tier as a region for regular people. And as a trainer, it is not great. Sorry. The biggest issue plaguing the Johto region is by far its access to Pokemon. While the Johto region does have some decently strong Pokemon like Tyranitar and Heracross, that's kind of it. Sure, the starters aren't bad either, and there are a couple of other Pokemon out there like Ampharos and the Evolutions, but the vast majority of the Pokemon in the Johto region are just not good. Like, you know it's bad when most of the Pokemon that make Johto relevant were evolutions that were added 2 generations later, and even then, it's kind of just Gliscor. Additionally, a lot of the good Pokemon that exist in the region are really hard to come by. Larvitar is only available in Mount Silver, which is only accessible after you get all 16 gym badges. Heracross is only in specific headbutt trees that are kind of hard to come by. It is unfortunately just a region that does not have access to many strong Pokemon. On top of this, the resources afforded to professional trainers are really not the best. They're not terrible, as you can access a lot of good items from the Battle Frontier, but that's kind of the only thing it has going for it. There aren't really any convenient methods of EV training, and bottle caps are not in this region at all. Then there's the in-game challenge, which is just kind of weird. We all know about Johto's bizarre level curve, right? 99% of the trainers and gym leaders in this game are easy as pie, until you get to the Elite Four, where you suddenly find yourself pretty underleveled. So while there are some challenging trainers in this region, I don't think that comes from the trainers themselves, more so the poor construction of the region. The one category the Johto region does have going for it though is the aforementioned battle facilities, as having a fleshed out battle frontier such as the one available in the remakes is a pretty big deal. Not many regions have a resource like this, so it's nice that it's here, but it doesn't exactly do all that much to help the state of the region for trainers. I think Johto is another D tier for trainers. Much like Kanto, it has one single saving grace preventing it from bottoming out. Next is Hoenn. Hoenn is a region that is near and dear to me. I loved playing these games growing up, almost as much as I love subscribing to my favorite YouTube channels. I'm kidding, but if you're enjoying this video, why don't you think about subscribing? I have a lot more content planned for the rest of the year in a similar vein to this video, so if you like it, you should definitely subscribe to stay updated for that. Plus, subscribing is one of the best ways to help out this channel, so doing so would really mean a lot to me. Now, despite how much I like Hoenn, I'm not sure how much regular people would enjoy living in the region. The main issue for Hoenn is safety. Not only does it have 2 evil teams running around, the most of any region, they're both actively trying to summon 2 of the most violent legendary Pokemon there are. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are some Pokemon that are more capable of destruction than Groudon and Kyogre, but I don't think a lot of them have the wake up and start shit attitude that these 2 have, you know? Like, within seconds of awakening, they're either trying to drown continents or fry fish. So if you live in Hoenn while these 2 evil teams are active, which is what we're assuming, you're pretty much constantly in a high-risk area, which is not the case for many other regions. Another struggle area for Hoenn is ease of travel. Hoenn is the first region that is fairly guilty of using HMs as constant roadblocks. The most obvious one, of course, being surf, as close to a third of the region is completely aquatic. While there are ferries between Lily Cove and Slateport which help general movement, that doesn't really help if you're a normal person trying to visit Moss Deep, or even worse, a normal person born on Moss Deep with no way to get off the island. The same can be said for Pacifidlog or Dewford, but at least Dewford has a dock which implies regular transit. The worst offender though, by far, is Sutopolis City, which you need 2 gym badges to get out of, as people are not able to fly to locations they haven't been to before. So if you're in Sutopolis and you want to leave, you somehow have to get 2 gym badges with minimal Pokemon available, while in a city with only 1 gym. And by the way, the mainland isn't all that much better in terms of ease of travel. There are random rock smash rocks littered across the region, and invisible Pokemon that can block paths. You're going to be running into issues throughout the region no matter where you try to go. On the economic side of things, Hoenn fares a bit better, coming in just around average. It has a higher average and median wage than either Johto or Kanto, which is a good sign for it, as it means the residents will at least be flush with cash when they're getting boiled alive by desolate land. What's interesting about Hoenn in an economic sense is that it is the region with the smallest disparity between the average and median wage, which insinuates that wealth distribution in this region is somewhat even. And lastly is urban development, which is a bit weird. Hoenn definitely has 2 major urban centers, those being Rustboro, home to a gym, a trainer school, and of course the Devon Corporation, which is a seemingly large and important company, and Lily Cove, which acts as a major port, has the biggest contest hall and also a department store. But if we take away all those amenities, there's barely anything left for Lily Cove. There's barely any actual housing. Okay, well, what about other cities like Slateport? Well, Slateport is even weirder because it has literally 1 house in the entire city. The rest is just shipbuilding and other sea-related industries, which makes sense for a city called Slateport, but it's still super barren for a city that feels so big. The same can be said for Moss Deep, which only feels big because of the space station, and Mauville is weird too because it's just basically a mall. The unique nature of all of Hoenn's cities makes its urban development hard to judge. It feels like even small cities have more to offer than the cities of Kanto or Johto, but the big cities, aside from Rustboro, don't meet cities like Goldenrod or Saffron. But when we look at the nationwide amenities such as the aforementioned ferry, the elevated cycling road, the cable car on Mount Chimney, and more, it is clear that there is widespread urban development happening. It seems that instead of focusing on developing a couple of areas like most regions do, Hoenn is taking more of a shotgun approach, which is kind of cool in my opinion. So for life as a normal person, I think I'd probably put Hoenn in C tier. It's not outright bad, but the major safety concerns keep it from being higher up. As for trainers though, Hoenn is actually pretty decent. It is also kind of hard to judge, specifically because of Emerald. The third version of the Gen 3 games has the beloved and acclaimed Battle Frontier, holding some of the most brutal battles in the world of Pokemon. This alone makes Hoenn a pretty good region for trainers as it checks off battle facilities and in-game challenge, allowing the region to perform well in both of these categories. But the Battle Frontier kind of struggles with access to resources, as the shop has some pretty limited supplies, all things considered. In fact, Emerald is pretty limited in this capacity in general, with minimal resources for breeding and EV training. However, the Gen 3 Hoenn games are not the only Hoenn games. There are also the remakes which completely fix this issue, but also have far inferior battle facilities. See what makes this weird? These 2 games almost perfectly fix each other's issues, but it feels weird to give the region credit for both of them when they don't both exist simultaneously. It's a weird peculiarity of this region that could have easily been fixed by just putting the Battle Frontier in the remakes. That being said, I think the additional access the remakes provide make them more valuable to the trainers of that region, as the Battle Resort does offer some challenging trainers even if there's not quite as much variety as the Battle Frontier. Hoenn also excels in its access to Pokemon, as the region adds a number of strong Pokemon that are still competitively relevant and are just strong in general. With Pokemon like Salamence, Metagross, Milotic, Blaziken, and more, it feels like a real step up in quality from the previous generation. And that's not even mentioning the Weather Trio, which are among the strongest legendary Pokemon even to this day, especially if you include their primal forms. Even some more middling Pokemon like Breloom, Gardevoir, Cradily, and Slacking are good by the standards of previous regions, although they haven't held up quite as well as some of the others. You can even access some of the good Pokemon from previous regions in Hoenn as well, like Heracross and Starmie, so it's all around a really strong region in this criteria. And finally, we have in-game difficulty. How difficult are the trainers throughout Hoenn? And the answer is that there are some pretty tough trainers in this region. Not a ton, and certainly not as many as the next couple of regions we'll be talking about, but compared to Johto and Kanto, it is definitely a bit of a step up. Obviously, the most notable opponents are the champions Steven and Wallace, even in his 8th gym leader position, but the rest of the Elite Four can provide a pretty large challenge as well, and even some gym leaders like Watson, Norman, the twins, and Winona are certainly not a cakewalk. There are also a bunch of random trainers in Victory Road that pose legitimate challenges too, with a number having synergistic double battle strategies and, of course, Wally. So overall, I think living as a professional trainer in the Hoenn region could fulfill a lot of the criteria we covered, and I think it's the first region to do so. However, it also did not cover them the best, as there are a couple of regions that I think do it better. As such, I'm going to give Hoenn a respectable B tier for professional trainers. Now we arrive in the Sinnoh region, which is a very well-rounded region for both trainers and normal people. Is it one of the best? No. But it's up there. For normal people, it is very average, but the regions we've seen so far are below average, so it looks better than it is. The biggest strength of the Sinnoh region is its economy. On a person-to-person scale, average wages here dwarf the first 3 regions, with the average wage rising almost 20% from Hoenn, which was already quite high compared to Johto or Kanto. The median wage also rose, but not quite as much, insinuating there is probably more wealth inequality here than there is in Hoenn. This disparity comes primarily from the fact that Sinnoh has a lot of post-game content, meaning it has a lot of trainers that are high-earning classes like ace trainers who also have high-level Pokemon. So the average wage is not as representative of the average person, but the median still improved anyway. Sinnoh also seems to have a fairly rich import and export economy as well, as both Snowpoint and Canalave seem to have pretty active water transportation. The Sinnoh region is also the most urbanized region we've seen so far, although that title won't be held for very long. Having 3 highly urbanized cities in Jubilife, Hearthome, and Veilstone, Sinnoh shows that despite having some of these smallest towns in Pokemon, it is still a force for urbanization. But one area the Sinnoh region does kind of struggle in is ease of access, as the mountainous nature of the region means that you basically always have to traverse Mount Cornet to get from one side to the other. This isn't too bad, as most pathways are clear without HM usage, but not all of them are, and it is still a pretty major obstacle to go through a mountain that many people might feel inclined to avoid. The region is also slightly unsafe, but not nearly as unsafe as Hoenn. You might think, with literal gods of time and space existing within Sinnoh, that this might make the region highly dangerous. But unlike Groudon and Kyogre, the Creation Trio doesn't want to rampage when they wake up. What we see time and time again is Cyrus summoning them, trapping them, and using their powers against their will for his own good. So these 3 do not have the same attitude or penchant for destruction that Kyogre and Groudon seem to. Now that being said, Team Galactic as a whole is still pretty dangerous as far as evil teams go. Not only were they trying to destroy the world to rebuild it in Cyrus's depressing image, but the actions they took to get there were also fairly violent. They literally bombed a lake. I don't think we've seen any other evil team go quite that far to achieve their goals, and then also come so close to achieving those goals. That being said, a lot of Team Galactic's activities take place in fairly isolated areas, so they aren't putting too many people in direct risk aside from, the final step of their plan. So for life as a normal person, I think I'd put Sinnoh in B tier. It's certainly not a bad region to live in, and it seems peace and affluence are fairly prominent throughout this region, and it only gets better for Sinnoh. Sinnoh is one of the regions that I was talking about earlier that I said was better than Hoenn for trainers. Sinnoh just kind of has it all. Well, okay, one category it doesn't excel in is access to Pokemon. Yes, some of the strongest Pokemon of all time are available in this region, such as Garchomp, Cresselia, Heatran, Bronzong, Rotom, Togekiss, and a few others. But we all know the issue this region has with fire types, right? Even in Platinum and the remakes, there isn't a huge selection of them. Add to this the honey trees and the way they create a roadblock to getting certain Pokemon, even excluding the horror that is Munchlax, and I think you'll see what I mean. There are still many strong Pokemon in Sinnoh though, and part of what makes Sinnoh so good for trainers is that opponents actually use them. The in-game difficulty in Sinnoh is no joke. Okay, a lot of the gym leaders kind of are, but the Elite Four and rival fights certainly make up for it. Barry does not pull his punches in this game, and I think he's the most I've struggled with a rival out of all of them, except maybe Blue. Then there's obviously Cynthia, the champion that traumatized a generation. While I haven't struggled too much with her in my recent playthroughs on account of me being, an adult, I can admit that she is not an easy opponent to beat. In terms of champion teams, she undoubtedly has one of the best ones, if not the best outright, boasting a well-rounded team of some of the strongest Pokemon available in the game. She's the GOAT for a reason, and the in-game challenge doesn't really stop at the Elite Four because of the extensive post-game, which hosts a huge variety of ace trainers, veterans, and double battles. It is a region that is chock full of challenges for those that want to find them, and that's not even talking about the battle facilities. While I don't like the Sinnoh Johto battle frontier as much as I like the Hoenn one, it is still a fully comprehensive battle facility, boasting 5 uniquely challenging arenas that are built to push trainers to their limits. Each one provides a unique challenge, from the battle hall, which tests your ability to manage weaknesses and movesets, to the battle factory, which tests your ability to use Pokemon you're not familiar with, to the battle arcade, which tests your ability to gamble. Seriously though, a battle frontier is one of the best amenities a trainer can ask for, and it's accompanied by some of the best access to resources we've seen so far. Not only does Sinnoh finally offer some help with EV training in the form of the power items, it also makes good held items way easier to get. Like, you can literally just find the life orb, leftovers, and choice specs in the overworld, no battle points needed. The region also greatly increases access to type boosting items by adding all the different plates, and increases weather access by adding the weather rocks, which extend their representative conditions. This region also originally introduced the physical special split. I don't plan on weighing this change too much for the Sinnoh region, as I feel it's kind of weird to do since the Johto remakes and Hoenn remakes have this mechanic as well, but it is a super important mechanical change that was introduced in Diamond and Pearl, so I just wanted to mention it. This one change completely altered the state of Pokemon as a whole. As I'm sure you can see, Sinnoh is a great region for trainers to reside in. It is without a doubt an A tier in my opinion. It is right on the border of S. Like, if the Sinnoh region had slightly more fire type Pokemon or slightly more difficult gym leaders, it would be there. But these two small issues do hold it back, as there are regions that have all Sinnoh has to offer and more. And I say that as someone whose favorite region is Sinnoh. Anyway, let's take a trip across the world of Pokemon to the Unova region. The Unova we're looking at is the Unova of Black and White 2, as it just makes more sense to look at the most recent version we have in terms of game timeline. And I'm just gonna say this now, Unova is one of the 2 best regions to live in my opinion. It just kind of does everything well, especially in the economic categories. Once again, Unova is the best region for economic prosperity and by a good margin, holding a lead over Sinnoh in both average and median wages. This is partially because of the huge amount of late game trainers, but it's also because some of the more average workers have increased wages in this region. Black belts, bikers, and scientists all have an increased wage, and these are 3 of the most plentiful classes in the region. Unova is also by far the most urbanized region, which really shouldn't surprise you considering it is based on New York City. I mean, I'm pretty sure Castelia alone has more buildings than the entirety of Johto combined. It is a huge city whose skyscrapers largely outscale many of the tallest towers in other regions. There's also Nimbasa City, which is huge in its own right. The interaction between these 2 cities kind of reminds me of Kanto, where Castelia seems to be mostly business-based and Nimbasa seems to be more consumer-based, as it has a large sports complex, a musical hall, and a movie theater. That's not to say Castelia doesn't have anything going for it in terms of consumer interest, but it is quite a bit more utilitarian in nature. However, these still aren't all the major cities in Unova. There's also Opelucid and Driftvale City, which are quite large as well and provide unique amenities like the Pokemon World Tournament. So when it comes to urbanization, Unova is without a doubt the best region in in this category, and it's not too bad in ease of travel either. It's not perfect, but there are a lot of roadblocks that just are not related to HMs, and some of the routes even have raised paths so regular people don't need to walk through tall grass if they don't want to. Really, the only category this region does struggle in for normal people is safety, as Team Plasma is quite a bit threatening. They're one of the only evil teams to present a somewhat complex strategy to accomplish their goals, as they use their quest to free all Pokemon as a cover for their true goal of stealing them. I think this proves they have a level of proficiency that we don't really see in the other evil teams, and the fact they survived for 2 years after their initial defeat and almost pulled off their plans in the sequels as well speaks to their competence. The legendary Pokemon of this region aren't that threatening though, unless you're a competitive player staring down a Landorus, and some of them are even protective like the Swords of Justice and, ironically enough, Landorus himself, as he is in charge of stopping his bros from beefing. The Tau Trio though all seem to be pretty chill with each other and respect the region, so there's not really a threat there. So between the economic stability, the ease of access, and the not too bad safety, I think Unova is a great region to live in as a normal person. I'm gonna put it in S tier. While it's not perfect, no region is, and Unova is pretty much as close as it gets with only one exception. And honestly, I think it's even better for trainers. If I were to explain why in 3 words, they would be Pokemon World Tournament. There's a lot more to it, but let's start there. Imagine having access to every gym leader, every Elite Four member, and every champion, and they all had competitively built teams to fight with. That is essentially what is provided by the Pokemon World Tournament. There is not a single better resource in the Pokemon games that a trainer could use to hone their skills. Nowhere else is there a collection of talent on this scale available. Not in the Battle Frontiers, not in the Battle Trees, nowhere. It is the best place to fight other strong trainers in the games, bar none. Sure, some facilities in the Battle Frontier might test your skills differently, such as the Battle Pyramid or Battle Castle, but the sheer amount of talent here kind of overshadows that. The Pokemon World Tournament also gives trainers an extensive list of held items to use, as well as a number of TMs that are hugely useful also, meaning this facility also helps with access to resources. It's also worth mentioning that the price of the good items, such as the choice items, are at their lowest in the World Tournament, so that's another way that items are made easier to get here. The Unova region also excels in access to Pokemon as well, with a number of strong native Pokemon like Volcarona, Chandelure, Excadrill, Bisharp, Amoonguss, and many more being fairly common across the region. And that's not even mentioning that they are available in this region either, the Genies. I'm sure I don't have to tell you how broken these guys are, right? They're some of the best Pokemon to ever exist in pretty much every competitive format you put them in. What's really crazy about Black and White 2 though is that Unova also gets a ton of good Pokemon from past generations natively as well. Gliscor, now with its hidden ability Poison Heal, Metagross, Tyranitar, Lucario, Skarmory, and more are all natively available in this region. It is a region that is flush with powerful options for professional trainers to fight with, and they're gonna need them because the in-game challenge is fairly tough too. While I do think the main game is a bit of a step down from Sinnoh, as the gym leaders once again only have 3 Pokemon, and now the Elite Four members have a max of 4 Pokemon, there are still a ton of strong trainers in the post-game available to fight. Not only are there special trainers available like Cynthia and Colress, but there's also a lot of veterans and ace trainers post-game that have full teams of 5 or 6 Pokemon all at level 60. These can all provide a pretty big challenge since many of them don't have a central theme, and some of the ones that do are weather-based, which can be hard to counter unless you come prepared or massively overleveled. Unova is also the only region in all of Pokemon to have a challenge mode for the players, but I'm not entirely sure how to factor something like that into in-game difficulty. I think the fact that it's there counts for something, right? But it again creates a weird situation where trainers in the challenge mode will obviously have more of a challenge than those that don't. To be honest though, I don't think it really matters. Even without the challenge mode, Unova is the best region for trainers we've seen so far, and frankly, I think it's just the best, period. There is one that I think comes close, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So that means Unova is an S tier for professional trainers as well. in my opinion. It is without a doubt one of the best regions to live in if you don't mind the highly urbanized environment. For now though, let's move in to Kalos, which, if I'm being honest, is a bit weird due to its urban development. It's no secret that much like Unova, Kalos has a major urban hub in Lumiose City. This city is truly enormous, even in X and Y, having 3 separate areas, all of which are full of shops and unique places to go to. In terms of land space, it seems to be quite a bit larger than Castelia City, but that is likely just because it is on a more powerful system than the DS. What's weird about Kalos though is Lumiose is the only urban center. Literally every other city or town in the region is a village at best, most only hosting 2 or 3 houses and pretty much none of them having high density housing. This puts Kalos in a unique position and makes its urban development hard to judge. Is it well developed because Lumiose is just so massive? Or is it underdeveloped because the rest of the region is so poorly developed? I think we have to consider the region to be fairly urbanly developed because Lumiose is just such a monolith of a city. I mean, they're making an entire game just set in this city, which is kind of crazy to think about. Also, if you want to see me live stream a playthrough of that game, let me know and I'll try to figure something out. So I think we do need to give Kalos a bit of credit in this category, just not quite as much as Unova or Sinnoh. The other part that makes Kalos a bit weird is its economic prosperity. Everyone in Kalos is just so rich. While this isn't a bad thing, it is surprising to me. There are several trainer classes that see a 25 to 40% increase in their base wage in Kalos, with classes like Ace Trainer going from 60 to 100 and classes like Fishers going from 32 to 56. Even gym leaders and Elite 4 members get a boost when they were already really high to begin with. This means that once again, Kalos is the highest earning region we've seen so far. The odd part is just how much of a jump there is, as the increase has been fairly gradual up to this point. If we're being meta, I think this reflects more on a decision behind the scenes by Game Freak rather than a sign of actual high economic prosperity. But if we take it at face value, as we have with every other region, the people of Kalos are rich. So in this category, Kalos is our top performer thus far and the best performer we see for a long time. The region also does pretty well in ease of travel too. Not quite as well as Unova, as there are some more places that are blocked by strength boulders and similar HM based obstacles, but better than in most regions. One place Kalos does come up short for non-trainers is safety, as the evil team is basically trying to nuke the region because it's not pretty enough. So not only are they completely unhinged, they're also insanely vain, which kind of makes sense for a French evil team. I don't think they quite have the competency of a team like Plasma or even Galactic though, which is kind of a good sign, but like also not really, because do you really want an incompetent person to have the keys to destroy your region? Not really. Regardless, with safety being the only major pain for the normal people of Kalos, I think it's fair to put the region in A tier. If the region was not so rich, its lack of urban development would pull it down a bit as well. But if its people are able to make this much money even outside of urban developments, it means they're probably able to live a high quality of life in any setting. So it's much more insignificant here than it is in regions that are less well off. For trainers though, it is the worst we've seen in a while. Let's get the elephant out of the room. The in-game challenge is practically non-existent. We can all acknowledge that, right? I'm not a hater of the changes made to the EXP share in general. I think leveling being made easier makes a lot of the games less grindy and therefore more fun. But the way the changes are implemented in X and Y just makes the game way too easy. You end up super over-leveled if you play with the EXP share on, which is how X and Y are intended to be played. This alone kind of destroys the game's difficulty, but even without it, a lot of trainers are underwhelming. A lot of them have 2 or 3 Pokemon at most, including all 4 of their rivals. There's also pretty much no post-game, meaning the amount of potentially challenging trainers is far lower in Kalos than in the previous 2 or even previous 3 regions. Combine this with the fact that 0 gym leaders or Elite 4 members use Mega Evolution while you can, and any trainer pushing themselves will just blast through this region with little to no issue. Another issue plaguing Kalos is a lack of powerful new Pokemon. That's not to say there are 0. Obviously, it did introduce Xerneas, which is one of the most broken Pokemon of all time, as well as Aegislash, Greninja, and Talonflame, but that's kind of it. it. The only other Pokemon native to Kalos that could be considered good are Sylveon and Klefki. While Gen 6 does introduce Mega Evolutions, it's hard to give credit to Kalos for these additions, as no Mega Evolutions are given to Pokemon from the Kalos region, or at least they weren't until 3 weeks ago. If anything, I would say Kalos kind of got shafted when it comes to Megas, because the mechanic just made every other region look stronger by comparison, and it also doesn't help that its pseudo-legendary, Goodra, is arguably the worst pseudo-legendary there is. Look, I love this gooey guy, but we can be honest. Compared to Garchomp, Tyranitar, or even Excalibur, it just leaves a lot to be desired. And it doesn't get much better when we look at its battle facilities either, because instead of having a frontier or an impressive tournament, it just has the Battle Mansion. While the Battle Mansion does provide a decent amount of battle points, the actual challenge it provides is fairly minimal, as none of the battle bosses are all that challenging. It also lacks the variety a frontier would provide without anything to make up for it like the Pokemon World Tournament had. The one category the region does do well in for trainers though is ease of access, as the Battle Mansion does provide easy access to held items, and the introduction of Super Training allows for super fast EV training as well. It's also the first region to have bottle caps, allowing for easy IV optimization as well as mints for easy nature switching. But there is one thing holding Kalos back from doing really well in ease of resources, which is, ironically enough, it's Megastones once again. When it comes to obtaining Megastones, there are 3 main methods the game provides. The game gives them to you in the main story, you buy them for an exorbitant price, or you have 1 hour each day to go to a specific area or route and find the single tile with a shiny spot on it. Just 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day in real life. Compare this to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where most of them are admittedly scattered across the region, but are available at any time. The only constraint being the HMs you need to find them, or the Alola games, where you can just buy them from the battle tree. Having a limited amount of time each day to find Megastones puts a sizable constraint on how easy they are to get. While this isn't the end of the world, as a lot of them are handed out to you in the main game, and every other resource is super easy to get, it is unfortunate that the central mechanic of X and Y is locked behind such a silly secondary mechanic. The best I can give Kalos for professional trainers is C tier. I do want to reiterate that the access to resources here is still leagues better than Kanto or even Johto, even with the Mega Evolution issues. And that is the main reason it is not in D tier with those two. So if you're setting out to be a professional trainer, I would get the heck out of Kalos as fast as possible, or at least after you use the amulet coin to make fat stacks off of the region's incompetent trainers. Our next region is the Alola region, and in my opinion, it is the other of the 2 best regions to live in. I know it might sound biased for an American to say the 2 American regions are the best ones, but I promise that's not the case. Alola really excels on both fronts. For life as a normal person, there's really only one criteria the region struggles with, and that's ease of travel. Travel is a bit weird in the Alola region thanks to the ride Pokemon system. While the ride Pokemon are not directly tied to gyms or Z crystals, they are still spread out throughout the region. And without them, there's no way to do things like surf, push rocks, or traverse rough terrain. Luckily, the main corridors of transportation throughout this region seem to be pretty clear of these obstacles, so unless you're a person who enjoys a bit of adventure, you shouldn't really run into these issues. As for the other 3 criteria, Alola does great. You might be wondering about safety, because Alola does have the Ultra Beasts and also Necrozma, both of which can pose a threat to the region. But Alola has this covered, as it's pretty much the only region that has not 1, not 2, but 3 layers of defense ready to aid the region. The first are the Island Kahunas, who are more than ready to face down Ultra Beasts as we see in the Ultra games. The next layer is the Tapu Quartet, all of whom are willing to oppose beasts as strong as Necrozma and oppose Ultra Beasts as well. And finally, there's Solgaleo or Lunala, who will also try to protect the region if they are there when it gets attacked. All of this protection means that even though the region does face some threats, it should be fine except in the worst of circumstances. It also helps that Alola's evil team is a complete joke. Look, they're a joke that I love to hear time and time again, but in terms of threat, Team Skull basically doesn't exist. I would also argue the Aether Foundation isn't much of a threat either due to their incompetence. I guess you could consider the Rainbow Rockets a threat as well, but considering they never actually actually leave their hideout or do anything significant besides boasting, I don't really consider them a threat either. Alola does quite well on the economic side of things too. Its prosperity is a lot more in line with a region like Sinnoh or Unova, with many of the base wages being reduced from their exorbitant heights in Kalos. This was probably done as a means to balance the Rotom powers and Pokepelago, as both those side features can increase the amount of money you have by a lot. But most normal people aren't going to have access to those amenities, so we're not going to take them into account here. Regardless, having a similar economy to Unova is certainly not a bad thing, especially with the more rural nature of Alola. While Alola does have a decent amount of urban development with major cities like Hau'oli City, Hihi City, and Mali City, it is a bit weird, as it is also the region with the lowest amount of settlements in total, having just 9 if we exclude the Pokemon League and Tapu Village, as it has been abandoned. However, much like Hoenn, there is a ton of infrastructure across the island, implying this region is taking more of a shotgun approach to its development. While it might not be as clear as some of the other regions, I do think Alola is among the best regions to live in for a normal person. Living in a safe, decently prosperous place without too many obstructions on major roads is kind of a big ask when it comes to the world of Pokemon, but Alola checks off all those boxes. Plus, it just kind of has a good vibe. I've avoided using that phrase up until this point because it's just so nondescript and not helpful, but I'm not sure how else to describe what makes Alola good. It just has that it factor, you know? Even when we look past the metrics I'm using to try and determine quality of life for a normal person, there's something about Alola that just seems nice. And I think it's the result of the overall laid-back vibe the region has. The people are nice, the islands are nice, it's just a nice region to be in. And when you combine that with the aforementioned safety and strong economy, it becomes a clear S tier to me. And it's just as good for trainers, if not better. By far the biggest aspect Alola has going for it is its ease of access, both in terms of Pokemon and resources. In terms of resources, there are just so many different ways to do anything a trainer could need. Not only do you receive almost every Z crystal through the main games, but you also have access to every Mega Stone in the battle tree as well, providing easy access to 2 of the most important items with very few obstacles aside from like beating the game. The battle tree also provides a number of normal items that you would expect to find in such a facility, but you can also find a lot of these items in the overworld as well, like the choice specs which can be found in Tapu Village. But to me, the main place that Alola improves on access to resources over the other regions is the additional bonus content, like Pokepelago and the Festival Plaza, both of which provide quick and easy EV training methods, easy access to renewable berries, access to a multitude of evolution items, and even access to the exceedingly rare yet exceedingly useful golden bottle caps. There are just so many ways to efficiently build a team in Alola. It's kind of impressive that Game Freak thought of this many different methods and put them all into one game. And the access to Pokemon is great too. Not only does Alola itself introduce a number of new Pokemon that are really good, like the Ultra Beasts, Primarina, Oricorio, Ribombee, Lycanroc, and Incineroar. There are also a ton of good older Pokemon available as well, like the pseudo-legendaries, a ton of regular legendaries, and more. The ways you can get these Pokemon are also simple too, which further emphasizes just how easy it is to build a team in this game. While Alola doesn't have a battle frontier, the battle tree is a step up from the battle mansion, as there are quite a few strong trainers from past regions scattered throughout, many of which bring teams that are built in a competitive manner. When it comes to in-game difficulty though, Alola is a bit hard to judge. So many of the hard fights in these games are from totem Pokemon rather than traditional trainers. These fights are supposed to be challenging, and many of them are, but when we look at the actual trainers of Alola, a lot of them come up short outside of the Pokemon League. The league itself though is fairly strong, as each Elite Four member has returned to having 5 Pokemon each, and the teams they boast are fairly well built as well. Alola also has one of the coolest mechanics of any region in my opinion, and that is the Champion Challenges, where the player character acts as the champion and accepts a challenge from whoever might be approaching. This is really cool and adds a unique dimension of challenge to the game, as it means there are a ton of additional strong trainers with well-rounded teams, including Ryuki. Who is this guy? It's been almost a decade since these games came out, and I still feel like we don't know anything about him. Anyway, Overall, I think Alola is a rather strong region for trainers. Is it as good as Unova? Well, I would say probably not quite. Despite having much better resources at its disposal, the difficulty provided by the Unova region in general is just better, and the Pokemon World Tournament is just a bit more valuable in my opinion. It is still S tier though, and I think, as a whole, Alola and Unova are by far the best regions to live in. Our next and second to last region is Galar. For the sake of transparency, Galar is by far the region that I am the least familiar with. I just didn't play Shield after I beat it for the first time, and that was like 5 or so years ago at this point, so my intrinsic knowledge of the region is a lot smaller than it is for pretty much every other region. Basically, I might not be as accurate for Galar as I have been thus far. Overall, Galar seems to be a pretty good region to live in. It is the second most prosperous region we've seen so far, coming in just a little bit below Kalos. It experiences the same sort of inflated payouts that we see across the pond, but they are about 10% lower than their Kalos equivalents in most cases. This is still really impressive though, as it places Galar a solid bit above Unova and Alola, meaning it undoubtedly has the second best regional economy we've seen thus far. The region is also fairly well urbanized, having 4 different cities that could be considered decent-sized urban areas, including Motostoke, Wyndon, Sirchester, and Hammerlock. All 4 of these cities are quite large by Pokemon standards, but I think this is once again a result of the increased power from the Switch rather than a true reflection of the size or population of the region. All 4 of these cities seem to have pretty decent amenities, and it seems that the economic prosperity is fairly spread out throughout this region rather than it being concentrated in economic centers, which is interesting. It is also extremely safe. Team Yell is a joke at best. These guys make Team Skull look threatening by comparison, you know? Yes, there is that evil corporation with Chairman Rose and his creepy assistant, but even them and Eternatus don't feel like that big of a threat compared to some of the evil teams of the past. They're just, once again, incompetent. And lastly is ease of access, which is where Galar struggles the most in my opinion. While it might not have too many HM or ride Pokemon issues, it does have the wild area, which just spans such a huge area and can be hard for normal people to avoid. This isn't the end of the world, but it is certainly a markdown for the region. So overall, I would probably give Galar an A tier for regular people. While there isn't really anything outright wrong with the region, I also don't think it really excels in the same way Unova or Alola do, but that could just be my inexperience speaking. Let me know in the comments down below. For professional trainers, it's mostly good, but there is a bit of a mixed bag. The main thing holding this region back from being better for trainers is the difficulty. It's just not really there. Even Leon, the undefeated champion, doesn't really feel difficult compared to other champions, and the gym leaders and Elite Four don't either. I'm not entirely sure why this is, because the teams and strats they use aren't inherently inferior to previous regions. Maybe it's a change to the AI? Maybe they're just bad at using Dynamax? I'm not really sure, but it certainly does bring this region down for trainers quite a bit. Additionally, the battle facilities are quite underwhelming. The Galar Battle Tower is very standard and doesn't offer much variety or unique trainers to fight aside from Mr. Chinstrap himself. It's not necessarily bad per se, it just feels uninspired and at this point kind of outdated. As the amount of resources available without BP has increased over the years, the offerings of a battle facility like this have decreased substantially. This is somewhere a battle frontier would be very useful, as the variety would help bolster its flaws. However, this is once again a region that excels in access. Galar is the first region to have access to hyper training, and a super easy way to reset EVs, which are 2 really important resources that were previously pretty inconvenient. It's also the first region to have the ability patch, which makes it way easier to get hidden abilities, and that's in addition to a lot of the normal amenities that have been available in pretty much every region thus far. Galar also does pretty well in access to Pokemon too. The region itself doesn't have access to a ton of strong Pokemon, but the handful of strong ones they did add are broken. Let me tell you, if I could go the rest of my life without seeing that stupid horse or that stupid bear again, I would. Who thought they were a good idea? Yeah, let's just make an ability that completely invalidates Protect. And you know what? How about a spread 120 base power move with 100% accuracy and 0 drawbacks? Oh, and that's going to be on a Pokemon whose respective attacking stat increases whenever it takes a KO. Like these two. Ooh, don't get me started. There are a few other really good Pokemon from this this region as well, like Rillaboom, Dracovic, and Regieleki. Dragapult is also quite good, and Grimmsnarl can be as well under the right circumstances. Where Galar really shines though is the Pokemon it brings back from previous regions, as almost every notable Pokemon can be found in this region, including legendaries which can be found in Dynamax Adventures. So while it's not perfect for trainers, it's definitely better than it is worse. The pros definitely outweigh the cons. I think it should be a low A tier for trainers. The lack of challenge prevents it from being S tier, but everything else is really good, which is why it isn't lower down either. And finally, we have Paldea. Paldea is a very good region to live in for a normal person. However, there is one issue that I had with this region. We do not have a good resource for economic data. See, you might have caught at the beginning of the video I showed this table which has the base wages for all trainers in the series. It ends at Gen 8, meaning we have no large-scale data set to use for the trainers of Paldea to determine economic prosperity. I could only find a handful of data points for this region, and while they were mostly good, it doesn't feel right to make a solid economic declaration for an entire region based off of a dozen people, when every other region had literally hundreds of data points. The data we do have seems to insinuate that Paldea is quite well off like the other Europe-based regions, but again, I don't think this is enough information to make that kind of declaration concretely. Another aspect that makes Paldea kind of weird to judge is the ease of travel. For the player character, new areas are essentially unlocked by upgrading our legendary Bikemon. This allows us to surf, jump higher, and eventually even float. But like, there are only 2 of these Pokemon in the entire region, and one of them seems to be quite evil. So how does everyone else get around? Do they have HMs? Can Cyclizar do the job? Are they just kind of screwed most of the time? Well, no. The good thing about Paldea is that for normal people, there are very few areas that are blocked off by jumps or water. Most are just connected by roads, so you don't need a legendary Pokemon, even though having one would make things easier. Urbanization is also a bit weird, but not too weird. What makes urbanization weird is that there are so many buildings that are non-enterable. While there have pretty much always been some buildings that have been unenterable, it is kind of crazy that a city as large as Mesagoza can have so little to look at internally, making the true size of these cities a bit hard to judge, as we cannot know if the multi-story buildings of Levincia are housing or commercial or office space. We just kind of have to go off vibe. Even then, there are 3 major urban areas in Paldea, which isn't a lot for a region of its size. Those are the aforementioned Mesagoza and Levincia, as well as Coscarafa. There are also a few mid-sized towns as well, like Medali and Artisan, but they are about half the size of those first 3. So it's not like the region is doing bad in terms of urbanization, it's just not doing great either. In terms of safety though, Paldea is very solid. The evil team is just a bunch of kids who are fed up with being bullied, so they don't have any evil intentions at all. And the only other notable threats are the Treasures of Ruin, which are tightly sealed away, and Paradox Pokemon, which are mostly trapped in Area 0, an area most people won't be trying to go into anyway. Even when we did see a Paradox Pokemon escape, it just ended up in a desert, which was fairly sparsely populated anyway. So for normal people, I'd say Paldea is a very good place to live. I'll give it A tier, with its weird urbanization and economic ambiguity being the reason it's not S. It's a pretty good region for trainers as well. It once again expands on access to both resources and Pokemon. For resources, Paldea matches Galar, but I wouldn't say it really expands on it in a meaningful way. No new methods of hyper training or EV training are provided, and there aren't really any new quality of life features either, aside from the ones related to terrestrialization, which just kind of replaced the ones related to Dynamax. I guess you could say the item crafting system and expanded register of TMs and TRs are a bit of an upgrade, but it's not that significant. However, one area it does excel is the new Pokemon. As the most recent generation, it of course has to get the spotlight, and a result of that is that pretty much all the new Pokemon introduced are broken. Okay, not all of them, but a huge amount of them for sure. I'm sure I don't need to tell you what they are, but in case I do, there's Fluttermane, Koraidon, Miraidon, Terapagos, Goldengo, Annihilate, Iron Hands, Raging Bolt, Dondozo Tatsugiri, Ursaluna Bloodmoon, Palafin, Farigiraf, King Gambit, Chiyu, Xianpao, Ogerpon, Archaludon, and probably plenty more. And that's without the returning Pokemon like Incineroar, the Genies, Dragonite, Amoonguss. I mean, look, you get the idea. There are a ton of broken Pokemon in these games, and it's probably the single strongest generation we've seen so far in terms of pure Pokemon included. The in-game challenge is pretty okay too if you take the DLC into account. it. Although Paldea's Pokemon League is undoubtedly the weakest we've seen so far, there are also a number of challenge trainers scattered across the region that also increase difficulty by a bit, but they're optional and they won't fight you unless you approach them, so it's not like they're truly challenging in the way some of the other region's trainers are. But in terms of battle facilities, it is the worst, as there are no battle facilities in Paldea. Again, if you include the DLC, the Blueberry Academy kind of fixes this, but at the same time, the Blueberry Academy is technically located in Unova, so if we're gonna give any credit to a region, it should be that one. While I don't like the lack of battle facilities, I do kind of understand why there are none. I think this series has kind of outgrown the need for such a feature. With how accessible battle items and mechanics have gotten over the years, the need for a battle facility has decreased, as their purpose has just kind of been assimilated by the main game. So I can see why Game Freak left them out of Scarlet and Violet, but that doesn't really matter for Paldea since we're still going to have to take them into account. Overall, I think life as a trainer in Paldea would be kind of polarized. You would have practically unfettered access to the best resources you could ask for in the world of Pokemon, but basically nothing to use them on. As such, I don't think I can put Paldea higher than B tier for trainers. Funnily enough, it is once again kind of like the other two Europe-based regions, where the best course of action is probably to farm the rich trainers for their money and then dip to another region. Anyway, that is all of them. Unless you're curious about the Ori region, in which case I'm just gonna say it's F in both, and I don't think I need to explain why. 90% of that region is uninhabitable deserts, there's like no battle facilities or anything. It's practically a failed state as far as regions go. Anyway, thank you so much for watching as always. If you made it all the way to the end, you should definitely subscribe. You obviously like the content. Plus, it would really mean a lot to me. I should be back next week with another video, and I'm hoping to upload one video a week for the rest of the year. This one just took a lot longer than I anticipated it taking. So thank you once again, and I'll see you next time.